Okay, thank you, Council. Welcome back. So administration kind of did go away and make some adjustments to the operating budget. So we'll talk about that right now. So the first thing we did is from the unfunded items list, we did add in that $50,000 item for the ICF agreement support going next year. So that was identified. Then that led us to have to look at reducing $225,000 off of the budget. So we were not able to get the entire amount done, but we were able to pull down $195,500, which is leaving us with a tax increase of 0.27% of a mill rate increase.
And did you look at franchise fee?
So we did talk about franchise fees when we were back there. The only reason that we did not bring that forward is that due to the fact that we're not done the franchise fee impact review yet, and we are eligible to bring those numbers back in at any point throughout the year. So if after the review we do want to talk about it at the mill rate time, we can add it in there. But we can talk about that right now as well. Mm-hmm. Juanita, can you bring up the Excel document that was, I believe it was in Operation Day, and there is some COLA or franchise-free sheet amounts. So effectively, the number that we still have in budget over and above the assessment increase is $29,182. So to be fair, moving up 1% on ATCO would get us pretty much there.
And what is do you know, Director Vickers, the impact to typical household?
For an ATCO?
Yeah, like so is it 50 cents a month?
So when it comes to ATCO, they don't provide us that information until we're ready to make an increase. So I'll have to reach out to ATCO. Okay. They'll have to crunch those numbers for us and send that back to us.
You wouldn't have any information from last year when?
I can go through and look at last year's, yeah.
Because it's probably not that much different.
Mayor Barclay, are we able to see the detail of where the $195,000 savings came from when you were having your discussions?
Yep, that's the other spreadsheet.
Okay, yeah, so can you bring up the other spreadsheet, the budget changes? So this is the list of items that we went through and pulled everything out of. So the first item there is the sidewalk program. We did, that was sitting at 100,000. We did kind of lower that to 50,000 with the intent that we will be bringing this back in at the surplus time to pay out the rest. Under that second line, so the fire, so what this is going to cover, we're going to transfer the $10,000 that we are not spending for the fire cadet program this year because we received donation money in lieu of that, and we're going to carry that over and cover the cost for next year, so that's that dollars. Under the council budget for the operating projects, we did, under the communication projects, there is 2 identifiable projects in there, so we have reduced it by 1, so we are saving that $5,000. Under the admin department, we did reduce our staff development and training by $5,000. Cemetery, we did a review of what we have left for plots, and we decided that we are not going to be doing a concrete runner project this year. And if at some point throughout the year it does come up that all of a sudden that need happens, we will just ask for a budget adjustment and pull from reserves at that point to do that. So ECDEV, we did reduce that power of place update by $25,000. So it is still $55,000, but effectively that project's 50, and we moved 5,000 into that ECDEV policy support, so it is still a 55,000, so we reduced it by 25,000. In the admin, we reduced our photocopy expense, so that's photocopy postage expense in the back. Under parks, we reduced the repairs and maintenance by $10,000. Again, in FCSS, we did reduce the travel costs. We were carrying some travel costs for some of the board members to take some training, and they have not been utilizing that in the last number of years, so we decided to reduce that. In planning and community services, we did increase some revenue. Both fire and peace officer did opt to lower their training. We did increase their training this year due to increased staff. So we're going to lower that and kind of see how it works out throughout the year and revisit that at a different year. In the arena, we did increase the lease revenue by $2,500. We did look at all the other revenues and felt that at this time, even if we did increase the rates, it will still be well within our budgeted amounts this year. For the aquatic center, we did reduce that natural gas cost by $10,000. That was the increase that we anticipated this year. That doesn't mean that we might still end up going over budget this year on that line, but we'll wait until the facility is completed as a new energy efficient facility. We'll likely need to wait for about a year's worth of information, and then we'll come back and kind of reevaluate what that looks like. We did take away the increase to the infill and facade program, so that's a reduction of $25,000. In the admin department, we did reduce some recruitment costs for the town. So normally we do carry a small budget that would cover costs for postings under different types. And we do carry a small portion for some relocation costs if that's kind of a barrier for certain staff. So we did kind of lower that a little bit. Facilities, we also removed $1,000 worth of training. And then in the admin budget, we've carried a budget for publications for the last couple of years. We used to pay for things like the Advocate and things like that, which have stopped, so we just removed that budget altogether. And so that we did kind of trim the budget by that $195,500.
Director Vickers, if we put the sidewalks back in, I guess just listening to Director Kennedy, when we spoke about that, it was really around safety. And, you know, I just keep going back to the state of infrastructure report and how far behind we are when we're trying to catch up. And yet we, you know, take out an important program like that. And we go back to the franchise fee conversation, ATCO and or Fortis. Yeah. Like, can you do those in half-point increments, or do they always have to be one-point increments? Or
we can do it in any kind of percent increment we want. It can be a 0.1, a 0.5.
Okay, so how much is the ATCO again? Like, how much is 1 percentage point?
The franchise fee, it's around just over 26,000.
27.
The franchise fee one, we need a, yeah.
Okay, and the Fortis is?
So Fortis, if we move up to 19, we'll get 111,000
Okay.
For a full percent.
So you could do a portion of Fortis and then like 1% on ATCO or something?
And just heads up for ATCO, to go from 27 to 28%, that was an increase per year of $6
per year?
per year, is what they said last year.
Yep. Okay. And Fortis?
So Fortis is a different kind of calculation. Let me go to that. So if we went up 1% on Fortis, that will increase the average residential bill by $2.44
A year?
a month.
A month, okay.
And this is on an average of 625 kilowatt hours in a 30-day cycle.
Okay.
So obviously it could change depending on high use or low use, but it's roughly $250 a month.
So to cover the sidewalk program and the facade program, you could actually go 1% Fortis and half a percentage on, or 1% ATCO, half a percentage on Fortis to cover.
Yeah, so if we brought back in the sidewalk program at 50 and the infill and facade, so that would be 75, plus the 29 that were out, that would be less than just the 1% Fortis. Or right around, that would be right around
Yeah,
covering
right.
almost exactly that, yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave that open for discussion, but.
And Mayor Barkley, just a heads up, so the sidewalk program would not be going away. We would be bringing that back at surplus time to ask for that additional 50 then.
Okay.
If we're one or the other, yeah.
Okay. Or we put it in now and then we have a surplus and we can determine what to do with the surplus at the time and.
Juanita, can you put up the consideration for the surplus? Just, and these, obviously this list will definitely change.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what it is today. So again, that sidewalk program would be in there, or we'd take it out should we add it in now. The Ipsos survey, just based on kind of conversation yesterday, we'd like to revisit that at the surplus discussion and see if council would be interested in that then. The downtown lights project, 75 over 3 years, depending on what the surplus looks like and what our conversations are, we'll bring back some options for that. We've added the Centennial Park sign, there's no dollar value yet, but we'll definitely kind of have a look for some options for that. Again, based on the conversation earlier, we did put in art. We put in the total amount and have further discussion, then. And then likely the balance of the surplus will be likely putting to the Aquatic Center Reserve, the Aquatic Center projects, something like that, right?
Or any facility reserve.
Yeah, and anything like that,
Need
yeah.
to continue to build. Okay.
So what would you like to see?
Well, we'll find out.
I will be bringing back a report on Monday. It'll just be a quick cover report, and we'll probably have another PowerPoint just to kind of refocus on everything that we've talked and finalized over this week.
So if we choose, we could put the mill rate at a 0% increase, and then, but we'd need to add in the ATCO.
If we added in the
And-
ATCO, that would almost net us out to zero right now.
Well, and the Fortis, if we wanted to do the sidewalk and the facade program, and have that in the budget now.
Yeah.
Just trying to summarize, so we understand. Okay. All right, well, we'll go around the table.
Can I ask
Counselor Wynn will
can
go
I ask
first.
one
Okay.
question first?
Yes,
just
for
please?
sure.
And this is related to the franchise fees. Homeowners have options now relative to who they purchase their power from, for example. Do those other providers, other than Fortis and ATCO, charge a franchise fee? Or do they pay it to Fortis because they're buying the power from
Yes.
Fortis?
Yes.
So people still see the franchise fee on their power bill regardless of who they're getting it from?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I have no problem with that. Yeah, I think I like that we're, obviously, they're taking it very serious. We're not just throwing numbers around and saying budget will balance itself. But I definitely think that, we are put in a position where we do have a lot, if we foreshadow with any type of thought of what we've seen, the way it's been, historically where we're going. I just kind of thought, if we were to do a 0.5% increase for the town of Innisfail, we look at, maybe a 0.5 from Fortis and 1% from ATCO, or vice versa. I think that I'm kind of just in the, 0.5 all across the board, or maybe 0.5 for town, and then franchise fees, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't see, I just see that I don't want to get too close to those caps, because the caps, obviously, we don't want to be the one like maxing the caps out, but at the same time, it is a part that obviously we got to look at and see so it's fair and equitable to everyone that's a user pay, and that's kind of where I'm at. I think it's, to bring the numbers down is great, but if we were able to, a 0.5% tax increase for the town of Innisfail, yes, I understand there's assessments and all that, but I think that'd be a responsible, fair number I could sell, so.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Strong?
Yeah, I like the idea of the sidewalk program going back to the 100. I think we've spoke about the aging population in Innisfail, and there's a safety thing, and I don't think the director should be hamstrung waiting to see if we've got a surplus to get the rest of that done. And full agreement with Councillor Hill that I don't see a problem with a 0.5 mill rate increase for Innisfail. Just, again, looking at the reserves, sooner or later we've got to stand our ground to make sure that we are putting money back in there. So,
Councillor Wing?
Yeah, I'm happy to have the sidewalks come back into the budget. Yes, we have an aging population, but we also have a younger population, and so accessibility works across the lines. If it's good for a wheelchair, it's good for a stroller. The franchise fees, I know we've got some work that is going on there. I would be quite fine with not changing our mill rate and addressing it through the franchise fees. 1% or portion thereof mill rate increase is a heck of a lot more than a 1% fee on or revenue on a franchise fee. So unless the study, the work that we're doing relative to franchise fees comes back and says otherwise, I would be fine with 0 and then recovering the rest through franchise fees this year.
Right, thank you. Councillor Hystad.
I'm going to follow Councillor Wing on this one, so that's where I'm at. Thanks.
I'm still struggling. The reason I'm struggling is because we have a significant increase in assessment value as part of this budget, and that's not going to continue forever. Assessments are going to level off, if not dip down some. So it is actually a 7 point whatever increase to the tax rate of an average homeowner in Innisfail. So I don't think that there will come a time in the very near future where the percentage increase that we're going to have to put in there is going to have to be more significant because of the assessment values not increasing the way they are right now. So that's why I'd love to see it get down to 0. I struggle with throwing it onto utility. That's just, it's the same thing. It's an increase, whether we say it's under the property tax, or whether it's under utilities. I do still wonder, and I'm very confident, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I am, that if we were to put things on the list for surplus, that we would still be able to do them and accomplish a 0% tax increase and no increase to the utilities at the same time. I'm pretty confident we'll have enough. And we had talked about, that's 200, can we go back to that spreadsheet, please, of the surplus? We had talked about the art not being 85, being more like 15 or 20. And that's with this 50,000 of sidewalk in there. If there's a 30,000 other project in there, I'm pretty confident that when the dust settles, all of that will still be done as part of the surplus, and we would not have increased tax rates or utility rates.
Councillor McKellar.
Boy, lots to go through here, isn't there? I'm much like Councillor Russell here, is that what we're doing here is just changing, I guess, the way we're taxing, if it's through franchise fees or if it's through mill rate. I certainly would like to see that mill rate stay at 0. I appreciate you getting it down to 0.27 initially. I think that's a great approach. And then taxing on the franchise fees, well, it's just another form of tax. We're just moving it into another pot, and we just have to justify that. And it's probably not as obvious to the ratepayer unless you pay attention to your utility bills, right? And I wonder how many people really do that. So back to the sidewalk, yes, I would like to see us go back. The infrastructure is really important, and I think we need that there. Could I live with the 0 and with the franchise? Yes, I could. But if we could get away without having to increase either, I would be more than elated.
Okay, yeah, I would like to see the mill rate at 0 because of the assessment. That's why CA once told me that when assessments are flat, that's the time you should be increasing your mill rates. And then there's times where you have large assessment increases, and that's the time to maybe hold back a bit. But, I've always been a fan of franchise fees in the sense that, that this is revenue, we can call it tax, but we're here to deliver services to our community and to ensure that we have adequate reserves and funding moving forward. And those franchise fees are the only way we have to, I guess, get some revenue from non-exempt properties. And how many properties did you say are exempt from?
let me have a quick look, but it's like 265 or
Yeah, so we
somewhere
have
there.
265 properties. So that means that the people that are not non-exempt are paying the bill for everybody else. And so that's why I've always been somebody who's kind of like both, that we have the tax increase through assessment, but we also have this other vehicle that we can use to capture some of those other properties as well, because they are using services and so I think I would like your thoughts, Director Vickers or CEO Becker, about kind of holding off and saying, okay, nothing, and let's hope for the best on a surplus, even though we can see through our state of infrastructure and all the other data that you've showed us, the pressures that are increasing year after year after year to try to keep up to what we need to do. And I keep going back to the aquatic center, and what if that funding doesn't come, or we get a small portion of what we've applied for, which is possible. So
I don't know if Todd has any comments on that. I do think that if we leave, like, the sidewalks can go in or out, that would be fine. If we put the sidewalks back in, then likely we would need 0.5% for Fortis and 1% for ATCO to kind of bring us back down to zero and take that mill rate down to nothing. Or we could, yeah, go ahead, sorry, Todd.
No, continue.
No, I was just saying, or, if the sidewalk stays on the surplus, then really we may only need a 1% ATCO to get us down to that mill rate of zero. And I just did the quick numbers, it would be $5 a year for an ATCO resident from 28 to 29%, so.
I struggle a little bit with sidewalk going to surplus because it's an annual need. It can happen for sure, but you're not anticipating next year's budget. So I struggle that way. That's when I need to bring up the funded projects. And is there anything in the funded projects council may want to go through once again? Yeah, maybe just pull it over there. As you can tell, the franchise fees creates so much debate amongst council. Is it a tax? Is it not a tax? It is, it isn't. It is. So how do you apply it is based on your own individual philosophy of it, but it is a means to collect over the larger community. So, but that is a philosophical council discussion, but it is also a revenue source. A couple things could happen today is make it clear, zero, make it zero. And we'll go back and spend a few more hours just to explore. Part of my mind is the application to reserves. And again, that goes against council's strategic priorities. It goes against the needs and the capital planning of the management team. So that's a concern too. Downtown, so the public RPs will come back to the policy and program review because to apply $20,000 worth of projects, who's going to manage the projects? That's why we're not that tipping point. I can't have my director taking on another role. So I'm just sharing some thoughts, but is there anything coming down through this list, and we did not go through this administratively, that there's something of question that may create some interest to get us down that $30,000? To delay tree planting. Again, it goes against plan, the betterment of our community.
CAO, we did update some of these numbers already. So I was going to go in and just kind of update some of those live here.
I'm curious, Director Kennedy, if we can't remember if we did 100,000 in concrete repairs last year, sidewalk repairs, but how far that money is going. So 5 years ago, how many, I don't know if you track how many linear meters of sidewalk is done for $100,000, and how many is done now for the same amount of money. And, if we leave it, as we know, costs keep going up, and so the $100,000 stretch is less and less and less. And
I can say we're just over 200 meters.
Okay.
For the 125, I think we did this year,
Okay.
1,000. Costs, yeah, they definitely increased that 3%.
Okay.
Per year
Yeah.
is what the trend is that we did do an update in regards to the LIN meter of the major infrastructure, went from 2,995 to like 3,100 per meter.
Okay.
So again, 3% seems to be the trend. That's what the increases are.
That's almost 50% since 2018-19.
Yep.
Right?
So,
It's massive.
But it does seem to be in that 2 to 5%
Okay.
range that we're increasing in our costs.
Okay.
So perhaps then the desires, sorry, Councillor Russell.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, through the CAO, Becker. I think anything on the surplus should be a one-time cost. You shouldn't have anything on your surplus list that is an ongoing cost. And if we look at that list, I think the vast majority are one-time costs that can be dealt with. The sign, the lights, those type of things are not an ongoing, they're a one-time cost. I'm just wondering if there's other things from the budget that are one-time costs that could go in there in replace of a sidewalk program, which is an annual thing I think we do of 100,000. So as in some of those special projects, is it a one-time thing that could be put under the surplus list? And again, I'm confident that what we have on the surplus list, that dollar amount will be able to be addressed, but I don't like ongoing costs being part of a surplus list.
So I just did highlight some. All of these ones are not tax supported, so these operating projects down below here. So if we do reduce those, it will not impact the tax rate, so just, so that's aware.
So typically, Director Vickers, we're kind of talking about surplus and going into projects versus surplus going into reserve, potentially paying down lines of credit and things like that. I think that would be worthwhile. I don't know if that takes more analysis, but, if we're paying whatever it was for prime minus a half on the line of credit and I think the sooner we can reduce debt, the better.
Yes, one of the focuses of the surplus would be going towards the aquatic center in some capacity, whether it's to pay
Okay.
the line of credit, to make an active payment, to pay for any of the furniture and fixtures that
Okay.
we would need to purchase still. So definitely that will be a focus of the surplus discussion for us.
Okay.
The rest of the balance, outside of whatever specific projects we're looking for, it'll be, our discussion will be around the aquatic center, so.
Okay.
For this year, right?
Yeah.
Going forward, we can talk about other reserves and other projects.
Okay.
But right now with the pool or the aquatic center, it's the big focus.
Okay, and do we have an idea on costs for furniture and that kind of thing? Haven't got that far yet.
We don't have
Yeah,
any of
okay.
that information yet. We'll likely do that early next year.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of going out there a little bit, not to make you guys nervous at all, but if we dedicating 500,000 towards reserve 2026, could we not take 30,000 off that 500,000 and allocate it at reserves, that's surplus time? Again, I'm really fearful of surplus because we're anticipating and we don't know that number.
But yeah, we can't guarantee on it.
A little leery, but it was the end of the world if we make that adjustment through the reserve allocation with the understanding that 30's coming back when the surplus is recognized.
Yeah, so on that one sheet of the increased transfers to reserve, I think it's at $480,000 for 26. That's just the increase. So would it be terrible to take 30,000, reduce it, and then add 30,000 to the surplus? I appreciate the conversation around it should only be for one-time use projects and not something that you consistently rely upon, but this is the first year of this increase, so it is something new to the budget this year. And then that way, there would be no increase to franchise fees, no increase to the mill rate.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I'd like to just chat for a second about the public art policy and that allocation. I would appreciate just a quick review of it at some point in time. To the best of my memory, a good portion of the policy addresses how the town will deal with art that comes to them by virtue of donation or whatever. And then there's a part of the policy that talks about the investment in the community or how the community might access that investment, leverage that investment, that kind of thing. So I mean, I think the number is certainly something that doesn't have to be set in stone this year, but relative to, especially as we get things started, relative to the thinking around time and human resource allocation to time, I just wonder if there isn't an opportunity for us to take some of this and engage the community, like bring in the art club and say, you know, engage them with, we'll buy pizza one day and let's have a conversation about what this looks like and how we can roll this out in the community, as opposed to always tending to own that work ourselves. But again, I think I'd like to see some of that work happen. We certainly involved the community as we did the research and we had that plan made. I would hate to see it fall off, but I don't think it needs to be, I don't think we need to implement the entire policy in the first year, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So any amount would be better than nothing, but we certainly don't have to look at 80,000, I don't believe, in the first year.
So Councilor Wing's comments, definitely we need to bring back the policy and the program proposal, the strategic plan that was approved by council. Even the level of engagement is required to be that administratively, and that's the strain we're having, is if council wishes to go into that direction to enhance the arts and culture of the community, we do have strategies already identify how you do that, but I think that a review with council would be the first step, and then determine if it's still a strategic priority of council going into 2026.
Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, no, I appreciate CO Becker's comments on this, but I would, you know, I think that Councillor Wing has got a really good point of how to approach it, but I understand how it does eat up time for your staff at the same time. So no, let's go from there. And but I think that 85,000, it wasn't my intent. You know, when I spoke to this yesterday, I think that there's an opportunity that you could do 20, 25, and do some really good work, utilizing the time and effort that's gone. There's a lot of money that went into that study. So if we throw it out the window, you know, I hope that we don't get there, but that's all I got to say. Thanks.
And we did address it yesterday, and we talked about, like, IWIC has really been the lead on most of this work so far, and there's been some funding available through the town to support it, but it hasn't been the town leading it, and I guess that's where I see it being at this point in time. I don't think we're at the point where it's an $85,000 expense we need to look at, and I mean, even 10,000 would probably go a long ways if you're doing maybe one or two projects and the town is throwing some money behind those projects in conjunction with IWIC and grant opportunities. So yeah.
Okay, so where did we land here? Is there a consensus for council?
Well, I think the conversation we've had, if you can manage it, we do zeros everywhere.
Okay.
If you can, and then surplus, I guess, would go to some of those unfundeds that we decide at that point in time. And
okay.
So if council's okay, we'll dedicate Thursday administratively, develop the reporting, come back to you Monday with kind of an overview, and then highlight the options to advance into zero, or consideration of the option would be, of course, a tax increase or a franchise fee increase, or based on, again, I'm throwing something out we have not discussed, maybe there's a reallocation of reserve temporarily, but so we'll just throw all this together and come back for your clean review of a administrative report.
Okay, and can we go in camera for a moment again?
So Juanita, I've just put in, it's called 2026 and then 0000 assessment summary. Once it kind of loads up. Okay, yep. There you go, yeah, it was quick. We're good, okay. Okay, council, so I have before you the assessment summary document, and this is the estimate that we receive by our assessors that we base our kind of budgetary numbers on. We do receive an updated number by the end of February with our actuals, so this is just kind of an estimate of where they assume to be. So we look at all these items, so these ones here, not anything below this gray line, these are all exempt, so everything above here does pay tax of some type. These alt codes on this line is how it is kind of broken up for us. So number 1 is residential. So in your binders on that first page, we kind of have that tax where we have it kind of broken out on here right before this assessment summary in your binder. You can see the codes on the side. The codes on the side on that document are linked to this assessment summary document. So that's how you can link them together. So all the ones are residential. Number 4 is mobile home. 5 is vacant residential, things like that. So yeah, so the code is what we use. That's how we kind of categorize each one. The records, that is how many like units are being assessed at that rate. So you think vacant residential, we actually have 66 vacant residential properties within Innisfil right now. Farmland, so that's vacant farmland. We have 33 taxable units that are vacant farmland within Innisfil. Single family, we have 2,266, duplex 335, so on and so forth. So our total taxable units are 3,592, and then we get into the last couple there are more like provincial buildings. So some of them don't pay school tax, they only pay residential tax, things like that, right? And then down below here, these are all of the exempt properties. So you can see all the municipal owned ones are those top ones, and then everything down below. So you can see we have 20 that are provincially owned. We have 3 schools, 23 churches, 1 hospital, a couple nonprofits, the Legion, and some farm building exempts right in there. So.
So Director Vickers, do we know, sorry, from this year or last year to this year, like the assessment growth in non-res in?
So that went up for non-residential.
Commercial.
Are you looking for the total numbers or just, so non-residential, so like number 2 there is improved commercial.
Yep.
So it's sitting at, it's actually sitting at 220 because the line is way
Yeah.
over here. So
Yeah.
it went up from 210 to 220.
Okay.
Yeah, but so if you look on this document in your binders, so that shows you last year's versus the numbers that are on this page.
Mayor Barclay, I want to speak to what Councillor Hill brought up as well about the fluctuations and the up and down. And I think part of this is the way we communicate this out, and that'll come after final approval. But I don't think we highlight the fact that we have 0% mill rate increase or tax increase to I think we highlight the fact that the budget is 7% higher than the previous year in order to maintain the level of services that we need. The only reason your mill rate wasn't going up is because of the increase in assessment. If it hadn't have been for that, we would have had to increase taxes by 7 point whatever in order to maintain. And that sets that precedent of, it's not an equal budget to last year. There was an increase in the budget, and it was able to be accomplished through assessment this year, but that may not always be the case in other years, right? So I think educating people on that fact that they're not realizing that it technically is still an increase in what you're going to pay in terms of taxes.
Does anyone have any other questions around this assessment summary? And if you keep looking, Juanita, if you want to scroll down to the next kind of page, This is kind of the page that does have that breakdown, and you can see in 2025, the green bar, or the blue bar, sorry, is 80.5%. So we have 18.58 as non-res and 0.88 as machinery, and then we have 0.03 as farmland. Okay.
Mayor Barkley, just for my own clarification, from 2016, 2017, there was that rail, non-residential rail, and then it's no longer there. What's,
Mayor Barkley, through to Councillor, I'd have to check in with our assessors why that disappeared. It likely just ended up being lumped in with another assessment class.
okay.
But I can confirm on that.
Yeah,
Because we do still have rail, and rail companies do pay taxes to come
Okay.
through Innisfil, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so is there any other comments or any talking points that you'd like to talk about before we kind of end for the day, I guess?
Yeah, I just doing some
Okay.
math stuff. So like the residential, the assessment growth here from 25 to 26 estimate is like 8.8%. So the non-res just on that one category was 4.5. So just so people are aware, the difference.
Is there anything you'd like, just for awareness? Okay. Okay. Right. And when we do bring the actual tax bylaw in the springtime, we will have a breakdown of every single property and what their specific increase is. So some people who do see larger increases, likely they could have done some sort of investment into their own property. If you build a new garage, your assessment's going up, right? Or even a new deck or a new fence, you are going to see that value increase into your assessment. If the neighbor sold for a higher value, but then that turnaround and means that your house likely can also sell for a higher value too, so. Okay, so council, so we've kind of been kind of given our direction, bring us down to a 0%, as zero as we possibly can on both taxes and franchise fees. We'll work together a report and kind of finalize all these details and bring it back to you for Monday night. So based on what I'm hearing is we don't need the Friday day, okay?
Don't think so.
Savings.
We still get lunch? You'll talk about that. Equal to Councillor Russell's comments about administrative work, also commending council for the level of dialogue. It's always music to my ears when council's in conversation and I wouldn't say dispute, but deliberation. So I just want to commend council for your efforts and continual support as we try to achieve this budget. So thanks.
No, thank you, everybody, and thanks for all your work, Director Vickers, the last many, many months, all of you, and we really appreciate it, and thank you, council, and a great discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.